All right, so we're continuing the interesting and totally bizarre story of Avram, and now we're getting to the sordid part. How do you say the not nice part? And, and I'm going to skip a lot of this, but I'm going to tell you what it was. I'm only going to skip because it takes time to do, and we don't have that much time. So, what happened yesterday? Yesterday we learned that Abraham circumcised himself. And that's what we learned in last week's Torah portion, and that he was sitting in the entrance of his tent, looking for guests, and that God came along to comfort him, and three angels came along, and two of the angels one of them was to heal Abraham, because he circumcised himself. He was 99 years old. That's not a simple thing. And second thing was to inform Avram's wife, Sarah, that she was going to give birth to a son. And we learned that Sarah didn't believe it. She couldn't believe that such a thing could happen. And she laughed, and God said, what'd she laugh about? And that's it. Those two angels. Then there came the third angel. And the third angel, he was there to destroy Sodom, city of Sodom. Now, if you remember, last week, in Lech Lecha, Abraham fought a big battle against these four powerful kings, that they conquered all these cities. Sodom was like that was the main city, but really was like a 5-city cluster, and these 5 cities were all defeated by 4 big kings. But in Sodom, which was the big city, that was the main city that had been defeated, Abraham's nephew lived there. His name was Lot. And so, even though the Lot wasn't really not such a special prize, but nevertheless he was a relative of Abraham. So Abraham said, "I'm going to save him." So Abraham went there and he made a personal war. And according to one opinion, we saw Rashi, he only had one person with him, and he single-handedly defeated all these 4 kings. And you can sort of imagine how it happened in a way. He just probably killed about 100 of them. I don't know how they did that. But everybody else saw that this is something, supernatural, and they all ran away. Whatever happened, I mean, you can imagine it, imagine it on your own. He won. And he saved these 5 cities. They were very grateful to him. But the fact is, these cities were big sinners, big time, sinners, murderers, rapists, debauched people, licentious, disgusting thieves, charlatans, everything you want, everything you don't want. That's what they did. So God says, enough. I'm going to destroy him. According to one opinion, Abraham said, what's this third angel doing? And God said, I can't hide it from Abraham. I'm going to destroy all these cities. So that's what we're going to learn about today. Now, the fact is, this whole business of destroying the cities, and in order to save, and Abraham prays, save Lot. And Lot gets saved from these cities. This is already very strange, because Lot is not such a good person. But from the fact that God destroys these cities and saves Lot, so listen to this, Lot gets saved only with his 2 daughters. He and his 2 daughters and his wife. The 2 daughters had husbands, but they didn't want to leave Sodom. They didn't believe this prophecy. So God destroys the whole city. Before God destroys the whole city, so it says these angels came to Abraham's house, to Lot's house, and he took them in, and that the whole population of the town said, oh, guests, okay, fun time, let's rape the men. These were really bizarre guys, so let's rape the men. So Lot says, listen, don't rape the men. You can rape my daughters. He has 2 daughters. So you see, Lot is a pretty bizarre guy to offer him a thing like that. But it could be that he knew he was trying to, shock them away from homosexuality, and then they'll realize that being homosexuals is bad, so maybe they'll drop the whole business and say, okay, we won't be rapists either. We made a mistake. Maybe the whole thing is a mistake. We'll leave. Whatever his motivation was, I don't really know. But that's what he did. He said, you could take my daughters, and they said, forget it. We're going to take everything. We're not going to take the business. So it says that they were smitten with blindness. So let's look at this part here. Here. So they were smitten. I didn't really want to do this, but it's pretty bizarre here. So the people over there, and they said, "What are the people that just came into your house? Take them out so that we can rape them." Right? That's the whole population of the town. And they came. It sort of reminds me there were these two Israeli soldiers. They happened to be Russian immigrants, and they happened by accident. This was, I don't know when it was, 20 years ago. How long ago it was? And they, by mistake, they went into the city of Ramallah. And the whole entire town, right here in Israel, all of the Arabs in the town turned out to kill them. First of all, they beat them up, and then they threw their bodies out the window, and then they tied whatever it is, ropes to their legs, and they dragged them to the streets, and everybody ran out to put their hands in the blood of these. I mean, you see that it's happening now. How the Israeli government allowed such a thing like that, and didn't punish everybody with capital punishment. Anyway, but you see that there is such a thing, isn't it? You don't have to exercise too much imagination. So Lot goes outside and he closes the door after, and he says, "Please, my friends, don't do any bad things. Listen, here I have two daughters, and they're both virgins. I'll take them out, and you can rape them. Do whatever you want to." Huh? What's the explanation of this? I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. That's what he says, that he thought that maybe they'll realize that they were wrong, and maybe they would leave the whole business. Okay, so they said, "Oh ho, a newcomer has come here. Lot, you came here, and you're going to tell us what to do." Right? It says we're going to. So they tried to break through the door. They tried to break the door open. So they tried to. So he closed the door. What happened? The people that were there at the door, God smote with blindness, from the young people till the older. They brought the whole entire, I guess, everybody in the city. They brought their children to educate them properly. You have to rape people. What's the question? Everybody was blind and they couldn't find the door. So what do you mean they couldn't find the door? They were blind and they couldn't find the door. It says even though that they were all blind, nevertheless they didn't run home. They wanted to find the door. Like it says, the evil people, even if they're at the entrance of hell, they don't do tshuva. You think that they were smitten with blindness, so they would say, "Wow, what a mistake we made. Let's all go home. Let's forget this. Please forgive us, God." No. They said, "No, now we're blind. It's going to be harder to find the door. How are we going to get in if we're blind?" But we'll overcome that. We'll overcome that because the goal is to rape these people. Okay, so the angels said to Lot, "Who have you got here? You have any children? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy the city. Because the screams are coming out to God, and God has sent us to destroy the entire city." It says the HaChiam, even though there only really one angel was actually the destroyer, but because two of these angels were together, the angel that came to cure Avram, he went to save Lot also. He saved Lot. So he wasn't there with them. And they were saying there were only two angels with them, but nevertheless, because both of them were together, so they said plural. So it wouldn't appear that one of them was the servant of the other one. Or maybe we can say that no, one of the angels was Gabriel, and Gabriel, it was him and his troop, the whole encourage of Gabriel. Or maybe they couldn't do anything until it was also Raphael, which was the other angel. He took Lot out, and Raphael was the one who was going to. It's not too. He had, so one of the angels had to take him out. So he said the two angels were working together. So they said, "We're going to destroy the city." we are going to, even though only one was destroying the city, but what he meant is one is destroying the city, and another one's coming to save Lot. Any case, so Lot says, okay, let's go. Everybody leave, and his daughters say, okay, we'll leave. His wife says, let's leave. But his son-in-law said, what do we got to leave for? Why? What are you talking about? We're going to destroy it. You guys just have to run away every time. You know, you're living in the imagination. What is a conspiracy or something? We don't believe in these conspiracies. God and the angels are going to destroy the. Come on. So he said, okay, run away. So he said, listen, Lot said, there's a city right near, it's called Sar. So let me run over there. Meet Sar. So he run over to the city. That was the name of the city. So God said, okay, get out of here, but everybody run and nobody look back. Okay, nobody look back. That's what he says. So God rains down Sodom and Amorah, all these 5 cities, Gafrit, the Aish, how do you call it? Brimstone, I don't know, fire from God, sulfur from God, from the heaven. This is what happened. First of all, in the morning, there started coming down, he says, HaChiam Yatzal, the sun rose up, and Lot came to this place, Tzor. He ran away, and God rained down on Sodom and Amorah. So it said, as soon as the sun came up, like it says, the time when the sun is still in the heavens together with the moon. Why? Because there were some of these, the people in Sodom and Amorah, they were all idolaters, right? So some of them worship the sun, and some of them worship the moon. Worship the sun because it gives food and everything. You worship the moon because the moon takes over. It defeats the sun in the nighttime. So God said, if I make this, whatever, sulfur and rain, whatever, and fire in the daytime, so the ones that serve the moon will say, see, God couldn't do it in the nighttime because our moon is too strong for God. If God would destroy it in the nighttime, then the ones that serve the sun would say, see, God's afraid of this God of the Jews is afraid of our God. So therefore it says, right as just in the morning, just as the sun and the moon are both together. So it says, first of all, Himtir, he rained down of brimstone. I don't know what brimstone is, for sulfur and something, and fire. First of all, there was rain down. Then after that, that became to this brimstone. Then after that, it became fire. You ever hear of brimstone? Anybody know what brimstone is? Anyway, I read somewhere, Gafrit is like what's at the end of a match. It's called Gafrit. So I think it's sulfur. I don't know. So God, he turned over the cities. Rashi says he turned over all these 5 cities. Rashi said there were 4 cities that were on a big rock. And God just lifted the rock up and turned them upside down. Like it says, B'chalmi shalach yado. That's what it says in Job, the book of Job. So his wife, she defied orders, and she looked behind her, and she became a pillar of salt. Why a pillar of salt? She looked in the back behind Lot. Says, why behind Lot? The Siftei Chachamim, he explains Rashi. He said, because why does it say that his wife looked after him? It should say after her. So he says the reason is because she thought that because her husband was compared to everybody in Sodom, he was a righteous person. So she thought, and here's the proof, my husband is being saved. Now she was an evil lady, but she thought that in the merit of her husband, she was being saved. They thought, therefore, in the merit of her husband, she could peek behind also. She thought that she was saved because of him. So therefore, she has permission also to look behind him. And there was God told, don't look behind yourself. So she wasn't. She looked behind him. But and behind her own self, she didn't look. Anyway, she became a pillar of salt. Why? It says with salt, she sinned. With salt, she was what happened? She would, whenever she got guests, whenever she had guests, she would go to her neighbors and say, can I have some salt? I have guests. And winked. Everyone said, oh, guests. Guests. What guests? That means we have a new, right? They didn't have television back then. Everybody was bored. So then we have people that we can torture. So he said, you're going to take guests. So there was an announcement. I saw other explanations also, but that's one of them. In any case, she sinned with salt, and so she got punished with salt. And there's even, it says that if you see the pillar of salt, where it's written in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Book of Law, that if you see that pillar of salt, that you're supposed to say, what is it? The blessing, Dianamis. Blessed the God is a just judge, and he punished her with exactly the crime that she did. I don't know what this pillar is. I guess unless this somehow it could exist for almost 4,000 years. I also don't know, but that's what it was. Okay, let's go a little bit further. God destroyed the whole cities, and Lot ran away. He went to this place of Tzor, and then Lot left this place of Tzor, and he went up to a mountain. Why did he go for a Tzor? Because he said it's too close. He went to a mountain. It was too close to Sodom, this place Tzor. So he got away from there, and he went up on a mountain with his two daughters. And the older daughter said to the younger daughter, listen, our father is old, and there's no one left in the world to have relations with us like the world. According to one opinion, Rashi says that they thought that the whole world had been destroyed. If our father dies, then that's it. There's not going to be any more people in the world. So they had good intentions. They thought that the whole world had been destroyed, just like in the generation of the flood. And that's one explanation. Another explanation is that they thought that there was no one around that was of their pedigree to get married to them. That's what he says. Here it says, Ibn Israel. He quotes the Ibn Israel with something that Ibn Israel doesn't say here. Maybe he says it somewhere else. Anyway, he quotes him and he says, Ish ein boretz rui. There's no one who is fitting, who's of our same, pedigree, the family status, to have relations with us, because they thought that they were big, we're direct relatives of, Abraham, or, nephews or sons of nephews, whatever they call it. In any case, so the older one says to the younger one, let's get our father drunk and we'll have relations with him and we'll have children. Oh, pretty good idea. So they got their father drunk, and the older one had relations with her father, and the father didn't know that when she laid down, when he began, or when she stood up. He was so drunk he didn't know. It says, Ubakuma, if you see in the Torah, there's written dots over here. Dots. It says Ubakuma, the older it says there's little dots on the Vav. There's a dot over here. To say that when she began to have relations with him, her father was drunk, he didn't know. But when she stood up, he did realize what was going on. And nevertheless, the next night, he also got drunk and did the same thing with the younger one. And the next morning, so the older one said to the younger one, last night I had relations with my father. Let's do the same thing again. And you have relations. So they did the second night. And she also had relations with her father. And the two daughters got pregnant from their father. They got pregnant from their father. It said they did a special thing because usually a woman does not become pregnant on the first intercourse, but here they did because they did something to themselves. In any case, so the older one, she gave birth to a son. And what did she call the son? She called him Moab, from father. And this is the father of Moab until this day. Moab, it said, she was not modest. So therefore she explained, Moab, mi aviyahu. This boy, this son, comes from my father. Moab, call him Moab. So the whole rest of his life, everybody's going to know that who is my father? It's my grandfather is my father. How did that work? It says because my mother had relations with my grandfather, right, with her father, and that's how. So I come from Abba, from my mother's father. Let's see here, but the younger one, she called the son a clean language. Amon, we'll see. Kabbalah Schar, and she received a reward in the days of Moses. In the days of Moses, Moses says about Ammon that the nation of Ammon don't make any trouble with them. And Moab, it doesn't say don't make any trouble. It says don't make war with them, but you can make trouble with them. Now, interestingly enough, these two nations are two of the nations that God promised, the 10 nations that God promised to Abraham, and he didn't give to him. Only the Moshiach will take over. It says God promised Abraham, we learned last week, that God, after the covenant between the pieces, so God said, Abraham, I'm going to give the land of Israel, and I'm going to give you all the 10 nations of Israel. And he lists these 10 different nations. The first three of them are the Keni and the Kenizi and the Kadmoni. And Rashi explains that corresponds to Moab, Ammon, that's these two sons, and Edom. Edom, that's going to be the brother of Yaakov, Edom, Esav. In any case, these three sons, they represent these two sons are two of the lands that Mashiach is going to conquer. The young person, she called her son Ammon until this day. Ammon, a nice name, doesn't really mean that much. Ammon, until this day, but it doesn't indicate that he came from his father. Now, one more thing is Moab. This Moab, eventually from Moab is going to come Ruth. And Ruth is going to convert, and from her eventually is going to come King David. From Ruth Moavia. Going to come from David. And we'll learn later on with the story of Yehuda having relations with his daughter-in-law, Tamar. And from that comes Peretz. And Peretz eventually is going to, and from that is going to come also King David. From Peretz. We'll explain that in the proper time. Okay. Avram went from there, and he went to a place called Shur, and he lived in Gerar. And Abraham said to Sarah, listen, and say you're my wife. He said about Sarah, his wife, that she's my sister. And Avimelech was the king of Gerar, that's where they lived. He kidnapped Sarah. So pretty much the same thing now is going to happen as happened last week when Paro took Sarah and kidnapped her. That he was smitten and he let her go with all sorts of treasures. Well, the same thing happens here. The Avimelech, the king of Gerar, he takes Sarah to be a wife. So here it says that Abraham said to Sarah, his wife. Here it says Abraham got permission from her. I'm sorry. Here Abraham did not get permission. He just said about Sarah that she's his wife. He didn't get permission. It was against her will, and to some degree it wasn't even for her benefit, because she was already taken into Paro by means of this. And she didn't know if there was going to be another miracle. It ended up that God did do a big miracle, and that God said he smit the whole family, the smit Avimelech. First of all, God appears to Avimelech, and he says, "You're dead. This lady that you took, too bad. She's married." And Avimelech, in fact, didn't have any relations to her. And he said, "God, listen, you're going to kill me? I'm a righteous person. I didn't do anything. But I had no. She told me that she was the sister of Abraham. She didn't tell me she was married." And he said the same thing. So God said to him in the dream, "Avimelech, I know you're innocent. Don't worry about it. And therefore, I'm not going to treat you as a sinner, and I'm not going to punish you. But now give her back, because he's a big prophet, and I'll pray. He'll pray for you. And if you don't give her back, though, you know you're going to die." Abimelech woke up in the morning, and he called all of his servants, and he said, everybody was very afraid. And Abimelech called Abraham, and he said, "Why did you say that she was a sister? I would have given her back. I wouldn't have touched her," which is a big lie. I mean, he would have killed Abraham. And Abimelech said to Abram, "Listen, why did you do this?" And Abram said, "Listen to this. This is a very famous statement. Because I saw Ein yirat Elokim b'makom hazeh, that people have no fear of God here, v'yarguni v'haraguni, and they will kill me because of my wife." So it's very, very important a statement that he's saying over here. If there is no fear of God, so people can be, I mean, let's face it, there was no moral, philosophical, cultured, humane, progressive nation, intellectual, than Germany before World War II. They had the greatest philosophers over there. Great Germany, Austria, the greatest of and not just regular philosophy, philosophers in ethics, what is right, what is wrong, properness, justice, kindness, respect. And they became the biggest animals. I mean, there was no animal that was worse than them. You take all the lions and the tigers in the world, whatever the most fierce scorpions, they couldn't do what the Germans did in World War II. Just systematically bombing people and killing people. And the rockets, they made rockets, shot them into England just to kill people, right? They used their tremendous intelligence. How many people did they kill in England? I don't remember. They killed a lot. Tens of thousands of people for no reason. No reason. Just killing innocent people for absolutely no reason, right? With all their intellect. So that's what he said. In the end, you can be intellectual, you can be a king, you can be whatever. But if you don't fear God, if you don't think there's anything above you, if you think you're God, then anything goes. You can kill people, no problem whatsoever. So they'll kill me because of my wife. The fact of the matter, Abraham says, she really is my sister, because she's the daughter of my father. But she's not just the daughter of my mother. It says, what does it mean? She is the daughter of a father is permissible to Ben Noach. Technically, the daughter of your father, if you have a father that has several wives, a non-Jew has a father and he's got several wives, and he has a daughter from one of these other wives, so you can marry that daughter. Yeah, because she And the sons of sons, they're considered, in any case. So Abraham said, the fact of the matter is she's like my sister and we're related in some way. So, I really didn't tell a lie. So Abraham gave Abraham all sorts of riches and etc. and Kesef Vazav. And Avram prayed to God and saved Avimelech. Now, it didn't say before, but Abraham, it says to him that God made a terrible plague on Avimelech and everybody in his family, that all of their apertures of the lower parts of their body got closed. And that's not pleasant. So Abraham prayed and they all became healed. So you can imagine they were pretty grateful. And also they didn't have any children. Everything was closed up for them. Okay, that ends today's class. Tomorrow, we're going to learn about the birth of Yitzchak, the amazing, miraculous birth of Yitzchak, and the ensuing Akedah, which is 37 years later. I spoke in another place, I said 36, it's 37 years later. So tomorrow we're going to learn about how Yitzchak was miraculously born. God forbid, with God's help, with God's help. So stay with us and don't miss it. Have a good day with Moshiach now.